I used to believe in merit until I was crushed by a single look of contempt. I once believed that if you worked hard enough, the world would give you a place to stand. I worked at that corporation for nearly 9 years. No fancy degree, no family connections, just my own 2 hands and the reports I stayed up all night to finish. From a temporary assistant, I rose to become the deputy director of operations for the southern region, quietly, without flair, but with dignity. I used to think that, at the very least, I was a small but valuable part of this machine. That was until Coy appeared, the only son of the company's chairman, fresh back from studying abroad, young, handsome, silver-tongued, and immediately granted the title of Vice President of Strategic Development, a title that sounded grand, modern, and entirely irrelevant, yet powerful enough to command. I tried to stay neutral. I didn't need anyone to like me. I just needed them not to trample on me. But life isn't that simple. It all began when Coy brought his new girlfriend to the office, a woman named Vun, made up like she was heading to a fashion show, no official title, yet always seated in high-level meetings. And Vun, for some reason, took an instant dislike to me. Maybe because I didn't fawn over her? Maybe because I dared to challenge Coy's ideas in front of the executive board. Maybe simply because I was old school in a system desperate to look young and modern. I started noticing the looks, the messages deleted as I entered rooms, the whispers behind my back. And then, on a Monday morning, I received a transfer notice. I was demoted. New title, Regional Logistics Coordinator. New office, the basement. And the best part? My salary was cut by 48%. No warning, no justification. I walked straight to the 32nd floor, to Coy's meeting room, and pushed the door open without knocking. I looked him dead in the eye and asked, "Why?" Coy leaned back in his chair, twirling a Mont Blanc pen in his fingers, and smiled. "You should be grateful you still have a job. Around here, that's considered mercy." In that moment, I didn't cry, I didn't argue, I didn't scream like they do in movies. I just nodded, turned around, and walked out. But I knew. Something in me had snapped, and at the same time, something else had awakened. I left the 32nd floor and descended into the windowless basement, a place cold, dark, and forgotten by everyone. But I wasn't afraid, because it was in that very darkness that I would begin again. I didn't retaliate. I didn't make a scene. I simply observed. I started listening to the things I used to overlook. I took notes. I rebuilt the real power map hidden beneath the glittering job titles. I spoke with janitors, security guards, the people considered invisible. And I realized this system is hollow. One precise strike and the entire tower would crumble. I made a promise to myself. If I fall, I'll fall forward. If I fight, I'll fight in the shadows. Because where the light doesn't reach, those who look down on me will never see me coming. Have you ever been looked down on for no reason at all? If yes, would you choose forgiveness or prepare for a comeback no one could ever see coming? The windowless basement and the forgotten faces. They moved me down to level B2. Not the ground floor, not even the main basement, but the sub-basement. No direct elevator, just a moldy stairwell and flickering fluorescent lights. My new office used to be a storage room. A wooden desk with a broken leg, a fan that clattered like it was falling apart, and a tattered swivel chair. No air conditioning, no windows, no greetings, not a single welcome email. They thought I'd quit within a week. They were wrong. I met the others who were also buried here. Logistics, that's where anyone who got downgraded passed through. Chi Thuy, once the head of procurement, kicked out for questioning a shady contract. Anh Binh, a systems engineer who helped deploy the company's first ERP platform, replaced by the CEO's buddy. Cô Oanh, the legendary receptionist who remembered every client's name,
demoted because she was past her prime and didn't match the brand image. They didn't speak much, but their eyes said it all. I wasn't the first, and I wouldn't be the last. I worked in silence, but inside, everything was beginning to move. I started to remember everything. I didn't just log shipment IDs. I tracked every odd number on purchase orders. I traced vendor chains and noticed familiar names, strange little companies that always won the bids. I cross-checked shipment IDs and found something more. A few of Hoy's favorite employees routinely misrouted valuable packages to suspicious addresses, private homes, or obscure branches in the outer districts. I didn't send emails. I didn't file complaints. I didn't whine. I just saved it all, on an offline hard drive hidden under the drawer's broken lining. I saw the ones who used to walk past me like I was air. One late afternoon, Vân, Hoy's girlfriend, entered the basement. She was looking for props for an upcoming event. I stood up, ready to ask what she needed. But she didn't look at me. Not a glance, not a word. She scanned the room and then tossed a slip of paper onto my desk. Need some vintage ceramic vases. Find them and carry them to the 12th floor, before 4 p.m. tomorrow, okay? She didn't wait for an answer. She turned and left, heels clicking across the concrete, echoing like laughter soaked in mockery. I didn't tear up the note. I pinned it to the wall, right beside the list of internal orders she had previously made. All bizarre items: vintage cameras, Italian steel chairs, velvet French curtains from the 1950s. None of it part of the company's standard decor catalog. Every item approved and signed off by VP Hoy. And that's when I understood. I didn't need to speak. I needed to watch longer. I wasn't shocked anymore. I wasn't hurt. I just saw things clearly. They looked down on me because they thought I was just an outdated cog in the machine they now controlled. But they forgot one thing. The one who used to run the system always knows which screw to loosen. I began to reconstruct the map. Who are Hoy's go-to suppliers? Who signs documents without reading them? Who are the silent allies, demoted like me, but still holding on to information? I was no longer alone. I just needed time. And I still remember Hoy's face that day when I asked him why. He smiled, cold, arrogant, as if I were just a speck of lint on his designer blazer from Milan. But one day, he'll have to look up at me, not because I'm lovable or pitiable, but because I'll be standing over him, holding the very power he once thought I didn't deserve. I used to be just a shadow in the basement, but every shadow has roots, and one day that shadow will be the thing that swallows all the light. Beneath the darkness, a silent network was born. No one pays attention to a girl sitting in a back room in the basement, and that was the perfect condition for me to start a silent game. I began reconnecting with the ones who'd been pushed down. I asked Chitui out for coffee. She was hesitant at first, but when I shared what I'd seen, the inconsistencies in the shipment records, her eyes lit up, like a flame that had waited far too long for a spark. "So, you've noticed it too, haven't you?" she whispered. "Here, the more honest you are, the deeper they bury you." I nodded. We started sharing what we had. She had screenshots of suspicious purchase approvals, all of them signed off by Hoy. I had batch numbers, employee IDs, delivery dates, even copies of mysteriously lost contracts. Each of us had a fragment. I was just the one stitching them into a complete map.
I wasn't truly alone. I just needed to know who was still breathing. An Bing, the IT engineer who had been reduced to part-time warehouse work, helped me recover a wiped hard drive. He didn't ask why. He simply said, "You're the first person since I got sent down here who called me by my name." Within 3 weeks, I had built a mini network in B2. Nothing grand, no secret meetings, no fancy plots. Each person did one small thing: saved documents, logged suspicious orders, tracked unusual approval flows. I called it the silent grid. A network outside Koi's radar, yet rooted deeply in the very system he thought he controlled. But Koi wasn't my only focus. I needed to understand the one behind him, Vân. Everyone assumed she was just Koi's girlfriend, but the truth was more engineered. Vân was the daughter of Mr. Tai, the largest supplier of raw materials for the company. I began combing through transaction histories. Nearly 60% of priority contracts had recently shifted to branches owned by Mr. Tai's family members. Vân wasn't just the boss's girl. She was the keystone in a perfectly constructed conflict of interest ring manipulating the company's entire procurement system. So I drew a diagram. Koi, the operational arm. Vân, the sugar-coated bait that legitimized everything. Me? I was the one rebuilding the entire web of power, from the inside. They thought I was a shadow, but shadows make the perfect witnesses. One night, while clearing out old boxes in the back room, I found a carton labeled "Temporary Storage Awaiting Disposal." Inside were old company contracts from a decade ago, including ones signed by Koi's father, Mr. Zeng, the current CEO. Then I saw something that made my hands tremble. Among them, a project proposal to expand to central Vietnam. It was submitted by my mother. That's when it hit me. My mother, once an architect, had designed the original logistics framework the company now used. The very system Koi was revamping to replace with his own hand-picked team. I remembered what he once told me. "You should be grateful my father gave you a job in logistics. If it were up to me, I'd have replaced the whole team long ago." They erased my mother, erased her contributions, and now they were trying to do the same to me. I didn't just want to come back. I wanted them to kneel. I knew it wasn't time to strike yet. I was still being watched, still enduring smears every time I delivered a box upstairs. But I was no longer a pawn. I was now the one holding the board. The silent grid kept growing, day by day. The data kept accumulating, document by document, line by line, record by record. All I needed was a trigger, an audit, a major deal, or even just one misaddressed email. That would be enough. And then I would turn everything upside down. In the shadows, I wasn't just surviving. I was bending every rule to rebuild power from the ground up. A new empire wouldn't start with thunder. It would begin with a silent touch on exactly the right file. The audit of fate, when the final thorn in the system finally rose. No one sees the killing blow until it's already pierced the heart of the system. A call from someone I thought had disappeared. That afternoon, during my night shift inventory check, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I picked up, a hoarse voice. "Is this Lin? You work at the central distribution facility, right?" I froze. That voice, familiar. Then it hit me. It was Chu Kwa, the former head of internal audit, who had vanished after a suspicious transfer 2 years ago. "I'm working as an external advisor now, but there's something you need to know. The company is about to undergo an international audit. An international investment fund wants to verify the entire supply chain before finalizing their capital injection." I held my breath. The moment had come. They thought it was just a routine audit, but had no idea it was a trap I'd been digging. 3 weeks later, the audit began. A team from Singapore arrived for a 4-day review. All departments, ground floor, accounting, logistics coordination, were asked to submit original documents. That's when Koi started to panic. He called for an emergency meeting with the executive team. "No one is to release internal documents without my approval. Every word, every comma, check it." And Vân? She quickly reached out to legal. I overheard her in the elevator. "We can cite trade confidentiality to withhold any contracts involving private vendors." I smiled to myself. They were scrambling to cover up,
unaware I already had the very files they were trying to hide. The silent grid officially went live. I sent the signal to Chi Thui and An Bing. The plan was in motion. A duplicate set of files was printed, with real signatures and accurate timestamps. Each file was annotated. Compare with official version to spot discrepancies. They were sealed in envelopes marked discreetly. Internal review only for integrity assurance. I left the envelopes right where the auditors worked. No signature, no trace. But I knew one thing: numbers don't lie. An emergency executive meeting, and the stage began to collapse. On the third morning of the audit, a preliminary report was submitted to the board of directors. Its contents were shocking. 25 procurement contracts had no supporting documentation. 13 supplier accounts shared identical tax codes but under different names. Most damning, profit allocation had been visibly distorted over the past 3 quarters. CEO Mr. Dung erupted on the spot. Who approved these contracts? Why wasn't the CFO aware of this? Vun went pale. Koi tried to maintain control. It might just be a data entry error. Let me handle it. But this time, Mr. Dung wasn't buying the excuses. He demanded all original documents and full system reports from the past 3 years. I knew one more push and the dominoes would fall. That evening, I received a text from Chu Kwa. Good. The audit team has concluded this is no longer administrative oversight. It's a structure of benefit manipulation. The fund is freezing disbursement. Internal affairs is stepping in. Be ready. I sat alone in the corner of the warehouse, hands clenched. They had tried to bury me with power, with silence, with arrogance. But now, those very weapons were becoming their fatal flaws. And me? I was still in the basement. But now I was the one rewriting the company's history. A leaked rumor and the first wind of a power purge began to blow. The next day, a rumor spread. The board was considering suspending Koi to facilitate investigation. Departments once neutral began distancing themselves from him. Even the security guard who used to bow when Koi entered no longer held the door. He can't approve monthly parking passes anymore, a receptionist whispered. I walked past, eyes forward, saying nothing. Because I knew the undercurrent had risen. Now we waited for the tide. They used to laugh in my face when I stood tall after being demoted. But now, I didn't have to say a word. Just watching them fall into the very trap they'd built meant I had already begun to win. When the boss got investigated, the rats began to bite each other. When the great tree falls, those hiding beneath don't fear the light. They fear the truth rising from the ground. The chair collapsed, and the opportunists immediately wiped their hands clean. On the 6th day after the audit, Koi was summoned to the executive office on the 18th floor. The closed-door meeting lasted 2 hours. When he emerged, his usual arrogance was gone. His face pale, shirt wrinkled, eyes lost. The news spread faster than the wind. Koi was temporarily suspended for internal investigation. Vun, his girlfriend, initially stayed close. But the moment she heard that the investment fund had paused disbursement, she flipped to self-preservation mode. I overheard her in the photocopy room speaking to the finance director. I was just assisting him. The approvals came from the system. I was pressured too. A mocking smile flashed across my mind. The one who once laughed at me in the canteen now avoids eye contact. I still came to work every day. Still wore my warehouse jacket despite the heat. Still brought the same cheap lunchbox they used to mock. Why eat like a construction worker? Just order delivery. But now, when I walked into the canteen, no one said a word. Some avoided my gaze. A few gave a slight nod. Not out of respect, but because they weren't sure which side I was on. And that was exactly how I wanted it. A silent purge within the executive ranks. Since Koi's suspension, the interim board held back-to-back meetings. After each one, another name was either reassigned or temporarily relieved pending review. A week later, the audit team announced a second round of checks, this time focusing on transactions involving 3 shell companies. I had once packed the shipments routed through fake warehouses. I knew the employees who signed the fake receipts. I had the deleted camera files, restored from the internal network. Everything was stored in a USB drive, taped and hidden under a loose tile in the basement. And at the right moment, I handed it over. No name, no number, just one line written on the USB casing. When the system collapses, start here. An anonymous message made Vun collapse at her desk. On May 23, exactly 11:30 a.m., Vun received an unmarked envelope. Inside were 3 screenshots, her chat history with Koi, and a snapshot of the authorized bank account in Singapore. She sat frozen at her desk for nearly 10 minutes. Then suddenly she broke down in tears, screaming, "I wasn't the mastermind. It was him. I was just following orders." The entire accounting department fell silent. I stood in the hallway, not pleased, not pitying, because I knew they were beginning to turn on each other, and that's how rotten networks destroy themselves. The CEO called an emergency meeting, and a new face was introduced. The following Monday, the entire company was summoned for an emergency online meeting. On screen appeared an older woman with silver hair and razor-sharp eyes. "I'm Mrs. Mai, Capital Oversight Representative from the investment fund. We will be temporarily supervising all financial and personnel operations here." She didn't smile. She didn't sugarcoat. She gave orders. All departments, HR, finance, supply chain, accounting, must surrender all passwords and system access within 24 hours. People were stunned. No one expected external intervention to go this deep. I was the one who provided the evidence that brought the entire system to its knees. 3 days later, I was invited to a private meeting with Mrs. Mai. In a small room, she looked at me and asked, "Why is someone working in the basement in possession of the most sensitive data in the system?" I looked her straight in the eye. No lies, no deflection. Because I was demoted, had my salary cut, and was sent down there. But in the dark, I saw what they tried to hide. She was silent for a moment, then said, "Do you want to stay? Work with me? Rebuild this company from the roots?" I nodded. And in that very moment, I knew. Their game was over. Mine had only just begun. The humiliations I suffered became the fuel that kept me going. Not everyone in the dark is resigned. Some, once trampled underfoot, turn every soul-shaped scar into a map leading them to the throne. The day I became a nameless shadow. I still remember the day I was demoted. From project department deputy, I was reassigned as an assistant in the basement logistics warehouse. No public announcement, no team meeting, just a short email from Koi. Due to restructuring, Miss Lin will temporarily support the logistics zone. I asked for a reason.
Seems like you don't understand the context. Every decision now must align with our new flexible personnel strategy. Down there suits you better. I said nothing, because I knew Koi's new girlfriend had just been promoted into the role I left behind. The year-end party, when my name was erased from the prize list. It was the kind of party where everyone called each other family. Each employee was handed a red envelope and called up by name to receive a small gift. When it came to me, the MC paused. My name wasn't on the list. From the crowd, Koi waved casually. "Oh, skipped someone? Never mind. Miss Lin's just helping out temporarily in logistics. No need to include her in the official awards." Some people laughed. Some looked at me with pity. But I didn't laugh. I pulled out my phone, opened the camera, and recorded every face. I didn't need the prize. I needed a record of every face that smiled while I was being erased. The day I was ordered to clean toilets because there was no one else. About 3 months after being sent to the basement, the industrial vacuum broke down. The janitor was on leave. The logistics manager, one of Koi's loyal men, said loudly, "Miss Lin looks free. Let her clean the third-floor bathroom. She doesn't really have a formal title anyway." The whole room laughed. I didn't react. I took the vacuum and cleaned the restroom like a real janitor. But that night, I logged into the internal system and traced the fake user account tied to that same manager, the one who had secretly approved 12 ghost shipments. I saved the data, a separate folder, file name toiletvs12orders.jpg. I turned every sneer into data for an indictment. When they abandoned me, they thought I would fade. When they buried me in the warehouse, they thought I'd disappear into dust. But what they didn't know was, the old data rooms, the discarded hard drives, the ignored security cameras were gold mines I harvested day by day. I collected trash emails, recovered deleted chats, tracked login logs when they forgot to sign out of public terminals. I had nothing but time, and with every passing hour, I silently built a case, not with arguments, but with hard legal evidence they could never refute. I don't seek revenge out of anger, but to reclaim what they stole. I used to think being good was enough, but being good didn't save me from their power games. They didn't just steal my job, they stole my dignity, my voice, and my place in this collective. So revenge isn't a choice, it's salvation, it's destiny, it's the final process to restore what they erased. I am ready. The network is complete. The evidence is overflowing. The enemy is beginning to fracture. And I, the woman once exiled to the basement, now hold the key to unlock the collapse of their entire empire. The day their empire shook, I was the one who let the storm in. I didn't sabotage them. I just removed one brick, the very one they used to build my prison. 06:03 a.m. An anonymous email sent to the 9 most powerful people. Monday morning, I sent an anonymous email. From phoenix.inside@protonmail. Subject, Structural Integrity Brief, Urgent. Attachment, REDACT REPORT v7.pdf. Recipients, 9 board members, including the founding chairman, Mr. Din Kwang. Body. Below is a compiled list of potential violations in the HR and finance departments, including 3 phantom contracts, 4 suspicious expenditures, and signs of manipulation in last year's annual report. If you choose to ignore this, I'm afraid the independent auditors, the press, and the Securities Commission won't. Please review pages 9 to 14 carefully. I hit send, then stood up and made myself a cup of coffee like nothing had happened. 14:32 p.m. A boardroom meeting held in silence and the shattering of alliances. The company buzzed with rumors. No one really knew what was going on.
All we saw was Koi, from the executive board, being summoned to the 18th floor repeatedly. Same with the heads of finance, HR, and the Central Region Expansion Project. That was the plan. The anonymous report I sent wasn't meant to finish them. It was just enough to plant seeds of doubt, of paranoia, and force them to turn against each other. I didn't need to shout. All I needed was one question to take root in the minds of leadership. Which of us did this? Who betrayed the group? How many people know? Am I being set up? 18:17 p.m. A breaking news story hits the digital press. I had written this article over a year ago, under a pseudonym well known in financial circles, the Nameless Gatekeeper. The headline appeared on the homepage of a major business publication. A chain of questions in Elitron Group's financial reports. Coincidence or design? They published it exactly as I sent. No accusations, no conclusions, just questions. But the kind of questions that could ignite the downfall of an entire corporation. Koi's reaction. Panic in total silence. That afternoon, I happened to pass the office pantry. Koi was sitting alone, lights off, staring at his phone. He wasn't speaking to anyone. His new girlfriend, Mai, tried to talk to him,
only to have her hand swatted away. Neither of them knew. I had left just enough clues to make my believe that Coy was the one who sold out the company for personal gain. The silent shareholders begin to speak. The next day, Electron's stock dropped by 1.4%. Not much, but enough to raise eyebrows. A small group of shareholders began demanding transparency regarding governance concerns. One board member, the same man who once publicly scolded me for having a narrow mindset, suddenly sent a company-wide email to leadership with this opening line: "I believe someone among us has crossed a line. If we don't clean ourselves up, someone else will." I smiled. I'm not playing politics. I'm building a controlled detonation. They thought I was acting out of spite. But in truth, this was a calculated chain reaction. I didn't need them to be arrested. I needed them to react badly, to cut deals behind each other's backs, to threaten, to scramble, to expose their own weaknesses to the board. I didn't need bullets. I just needed them to turn the guns on themselves. I was the one who let the storm in. And now I stand in the familiar cafe on the ground floor, sipping an espresso, silently watching senior staff pass by with faces that look like they haven't slept in a week. They have no idea. The woman they once buried in a warehouse, made clean toilets, and erased from the awards list, is the very one who opened the gates and let the storm walk in. The decisive meeting, when I was called from the sidelines to judge them all. They once thought I wasn't important enough to be invited. Now, the meeting can't begin without me. Friday, an emergency meeting is called. I received the email at 8:12 a.m. Mandatory presence required at the emergency division-wide meeting in Orchid Hall, 19th floor. Time, 10 a.m. Agenda, strategic direction and internal audit review. Required attendees, all department heads and any personnel linked to sensitive departments. For the first time in 4 years, my name appeared on the same list as senior managers and board members. No one knew why I was there. 10 a.m. A room suffocating in silence and heavy breaths. Almost 100 people, all dressed in their best suits, formal and serious, but their eyes were either glued to their phones or to me. I was the last to walk in. No applause, no greetings. I quietly pulled out a chair and sat in the last row. One of the people who used to look down on me, Miss Hua, head of operations, leaned in and whispered, "What are you doing here? Delivering water?" I just smiled. 5 minutes later, Coy walked in, his face pale, collar wrinkled, eyes sunken from sleepless nights. Behind him was someone who hadn't appeared publicly in over 3 years, Mr. Ding Quang, founding chairman of Electron. "We've gone too far, and someone pulled the fire alarm." Mr. Quang didn't bother with pleasantries. He went straight to the point. 3 years ago, I stepped down in trust of the next generation, but recent reports, along with the leak to the press, have forced my return. Someone among us abused their power, steering Electron off course, and, oddly enough, the only person who raised the alarm wasn't a senior executive. It was someone who had been demoted. He turned and looked directly at me. "Ms. Lin, please come forward. Tell them what you know." I stepped up, no PowerPoint, no titles needed. I walked up to the front. Whispers surged like ocean waves behind me. I opened my laptop, plugged it into the projector, displayed one single sentence on the screen. "We spent $4 billion in 6 months to cover up 7 things, and I'm going to name all 7. No one interrupted. No one left the room. Then I began. Fake contracts signed with third-party vendors, which turned out to be shell companies owned by Mai and Coy. Projects delayed due to budget issues, even though the funds had long been transferred elsewhere. Staff laid off, demoted, or relocated, all to protect the interests of a certain inner circle. I didn't use angry words. I simply laid out the truth. And with every new slide, another pair of eyes dropped. Another hand trembled as it typed furiously on a phone. I don't need revenge. I just want justice to have a voice. I ended my presentation with no applause, just a single closing line. No one ever stood up for me in my life, but today, at least, I stood up for myself. The room had never been this silent. The chairman delivered his judgment. Starting next week, Lin will lead the new internal task force. Mr. Kwong stepped up and addressed the entire room. Ms. Lin didn't just show us where we failed. She reminded us that integrity still has a place in this broken structure. I won't let this company be run by manipulators. I hereby suspend Koi, Mai, and the heads of finance and HR. Ms. Lin will form and lead a new internal audit team. Anyone who opposes this opposes the founding board. I turned around. Some sat frozen. Some quietly walked out. But I knew, that day, Elytron changed forever. I didn't destroy them. They collapsed when I quietly pulled out their rotten pillars. I didn't scream. I didn't fight back. I simply pulled out the bricks they thought I'd never reach. No longer a victim, I became the architect of a new system. Within 72 hours of that fateful meeting, I was granted temporary access to every floor, including data archives, financial records, and internal HR systems. A special audit task force was formed, reporting directly to me. And the first people I recruited weren't seasoned managers. They were the sidelined, the invisible, the forgotten, people like I once was. Ms. Ngan, a veteran accountant demoted to cashier duty. Mr. Tai, a systems engineer sent to maintenance for being too stubborn. Ms. Trong, once a respected HR supervisor, exiled by Mai for not bowing low enough. In a small, locked meeting room, I told them, "We're not here for revenge. We're here to restore justice, and this time, we write the rules." The web began to unravel, but not because I tore it apart. I didn't need to announce any verdicts. I just followed the money. And when you follow the money, you reveal the true power structure. Creative Light Events Co., awarded tens of billions for media campaigns that never happened, turned out to be owned by Mai's cousin. A new ERP system, 4 times the market price, barely functional, traced back to Halong Tech, where Koi had quietly invested during his MBA years. I uploaded all of it, raw, unfiltered, to Elytron's internal network. No commentary, no judgment, just the truth in black and white.
Everyone could read it. Everyone could understand. And there was nowhere left to hide behind legitimate reports. No declarations needed. The mighty walked themselves out the door. 3 days later, Mai requested unpaid leave. Ko attempted a countersuit. Until he saw my timeline of project codes, account numbers, and surveillance footage of his secret meetings with vendors, he withdrew. Then the dominoes fell. The head of finance announced early retirement. The head of HR went abroad for further studies. The once powerful circles quietly disbanded, their alliances evaporating as if they had never existed. And I remained in my small office. No nameplate, no glass walls. An old system was crumbling, and a new path was taking shape. I didn't climb onto a stage. I didn't ask for credit. I just kept rebuilding the system by putting the right people where they belonged. I personally reinstated Ms. Trong as head of HR. I gave Mr. Tai full authority to audit and redesign the tech infrastructure. And I signed off for Ms. Mun to reboot a neutral, independent internal audit program. And for myself? I didn't ask for a title. On my desk was a wooden plaque, handcrafted by the audit team. The one who unmasked without a word. I didn't tear it down, I just removed the rotten pillars. Those who once mocked me in whispers now dare not speak my name with disdain. Because they know. I didn't break anything. I just removed the exact pieces of rotted wood they had foolishly called the foundation. And once those pieces were gone, the collapse was inevitable. My family had no idea that the daughter they called a burden was behind the billion-dollar turnaround. I used to be the one tucked away at the dinner table, hidden when guests came. Now, I'm the reason their company still holds the top spot in the industry, and they don't even know it. An anonymous invitation, the 30th anniversary gala of the corporation. An ivory envelope, embossed in gold, honoring those who changed Elytron's future. No name, no title, just an invitation addressed to the force behind Q3's strategic pivot. I chuckled. They still thought I wanted recognition? My father, proud, stern, obsessed with reputation, would be attending. My mother, who always lowered her eyes when asked, "What does your daughter do now?" would be by his side. My family never mentioned my name. My cousin once said bluntly, "Mom said you studied too much and still got nowhere. Better not bring it up. It's embarrassing." The black dress? Not flashy, not loud, but enough to make the room pause. I didn't come to be seen. But silence, it turns out, was the loudest thing in that chandelier-lit hall. I entered like a shadow, a nameless guest, until the new chairman took the stage and said, "If not for this woman, we might not have survived another quarter. She held no title, demanded no rewards, and yet she was the only one who dared expose the entire flawed system with irrefutable evidence." Then the spotlight turned. On me. My father froze. My mother dropped her wineglass. My aunt, the one who once urged my mom to marry her off quietly to some rural guy, stepped back, trying to hide her face as if ashamed to be associated with me. No introduction needed. They all realized who they had misjudged. I said nothing, just nodded. The room stood up, applause spreading like ripples. Those who once ignored me now asked to shake my hand. The head of R&D asked if I could give an internal talk. My family sat at VIP table number 3. I was escorted to table number 1. My mother tried to rise to follow. My father stopped her. He whispered, soft, but I heard it clearly. "Not now. She's no longer someone we can command." A conversation after 10 years of silence. After the ceremony, my mother found me in a quiet hallway. She didn't ask what I did.
She only whispered, "I didn't understand before. I was just afraid that you'd always be behind everyone. But now I see it's the ones behind the scenes who can truly turn the tide." I didn't say I forgave her. I just looked at her, smiled, and replied, "I wasn't behind. I just chose not to step forward. There's a difference, Mom. Victory isn't when they bow. It's when you no longer need their approval." I didn't need an apology. I didn't need their respect. I just needed to know that I stayed true to my path, even when no one believed in it. I left the gala early, before they even started the final speeches, because I knew the greatest recognition doesn't come from stage lights. It comes from the confused, humbled eyes of those who once called me a burden. The final choice. I didn't destroy them. I built an empire that doesn't need their name. I could have brought them down overnight, but instead, I chose something even more powerful, a world without them, a world that doesn't need them, doesn't rely on their existence. A golden opportunity and absolute power within reach. A week after the gala, I received an offer from Elytron's new CEO. "I want you to become our long-term strategic advisor." The compensation? Unimaginable. The authority? Absolute. But it meant returning to the place that once demoted me, that once stole my credit, that made me cry silently in the restroom on the 15th floor for 3 months straight. I stood at the doorstep of righteous revenge, with every legal and moral backing. All I had to do was say yes. I met them, not to reconcile, but to make one final statement. I went to see my parents at the Hilltop Villa.
the same place where I used to be locked away during family gatherings because she talks too weird. My father asked, "You're really going back to Elytron? They need you after all." I looked at him calmly. They need me, but I don't need them. I've already mapped out my own path, and there's no room for Elytron on it. My mother's hand trembled. Then where will you go? I smiled. I'm not going anywhere. I'm building an empire of my own, and there's no one named Lou in it. My empire, built from what they once deemed useless. Elytron is a monument, but like all monuments, it's made of stones from the past. Me? I built using data, using silent fury, using the technology they once failed to understand. My company, Vera Technologies, is a software network tailored for cold chain logistics, an AI platform optimizing supply chains across Southeast Asia. And the twist? 7 out of Elytron's top 10 suppliers have switched to my system. I didn't destroy them. I simply made them obsolete. The final family dinner, one meeting to close a chapter. They invited me to dinner, not out of warmth, but out of fear, to keep the peace in the business circles. My father said, "You're still my daughter. You should lend the family a hand." I smiled, clearly with no pretense. I'm not helping the family. I'm helping society run more efficiently. It just happens that it impacts the family. Forgiveness isn't returning. It's choosing not to carry the weight. I didn't cut them off, but I no longer belonged, and I let them realize it on their own. I didn't do this for revenge. I did it because I could. And when you're strong enough not to need them, you're strong enough to forgive them, but not to forget. The end or the beginning. They say the best revenge is success. I disagree. The best revenge is no longer needing revenge at all. Just living on your own terms and letting them live with the silence they created. Have you ever been underestimated? Will you return to prove yourself to them? Or will you build a world where they no longer matter? The girl left in the mirror. I'm no longer the person they used to know. I looked into the mirror and saw a woman they could no longer control. A woman whose existence no longer depends on praise or anyone's gaze.
I returned to my old apartment, not out of nostalgia, but to meet someone I once was. The tiny apartment on the 9th floor of the Pham High building was still the same, pale walls, an old desk, and a quiet mirror hanging above the bed. I used to look at myself in that mirror every evening after work. When I was demoted, when my salary was slashed by 48%, when I found out my boyfriend had betrayed me just to climb the corporate ladder faster, when a man, simply for being the CEO's son, could steal everything I had built with blood and intellect. That mirror witnessed me collapse and then get back up. And now I've returned. I met her again in the mirror and finally smiled at her. I'm no longer the woman I used to be. No longer the quiet employee who endured it all. No longer the discarded ex-girlfriend left without a word. No longer the shadow behind the CEO's son's new trophy partner. Today, I'm the CEO of Vera Technologies, respected not because of a title, but because of a vision. I placed my hand on the mirror and whispered, "Thank you for not giving up when everything tried to make you quit." Closing a chapter, not to return, but to go even further. I no longer want to return to Elytron. No need to reclaim a seat. No need to prove a point. I chose to move forward and take with me those like me, the overlooked, the underestimated, the ones they called support staff or just backup. I hired them. I trained them. I created a world where the quiet ones could shine without needing anyone's permission. The 1-year Vera anniversary party. No champagne, just freedom. We held a small celebration in Dalat in a shared rental villa. No suits, no speeches, just a whiteboard that read, "A year ago, no one believed in us. Today, we don't need anyone to." The team laughed. I sat in the corner of the yard, a warm cup of coffee in hand, staring into the pine forest. No one could touch me anymore, except me. Lynn, too small a name for the woman I've become. The Lynn of before was someone who endured. The Lynn of now is someone who chooses. I don't need to shout that I've won. I just need to live in a way that my existence makes them re-examine their own. Because I'm no longer the person they once knew. I am the version they never saw coming, and the one they can never control again. The end. Have you ever looked in the mirror and seen someone your family wouldn't recognize? Don't be afraid. Maybe that's the real you, and you're about to build an empire that doesn't ask anyone for permission to exist.